Hi, I'm Pat Montgomery, and you're with me on Parents Rule Video Blog. My website is parentsrulewithpat.com, and I'm a business owner and author of Now You Know What I Know, Parenting Wisdom of a Grandmother, that you can find on my website or on Amazon or anywhere. And I also am the author of The Patriot Parent, Still the Best Hope for America, which is, as I tape this, is going through a revision right now and will soon be available lots of places. So I'm pretty excited about that, and you'll hear more about that in the coming days. Today I'm going to talk to you about blending families. How do I describe blending families? You know, messy, sometimes difficult, complicated, hopefully overwhelmingly rewarding at the end. And blended families can be so many different things. They can be two parents who get divorced and then they each marry another person of the opposite sex. They can be people who get involved in a multiracial relationship after not being in a multiracial relationship. They can be people who went from a heterosexual relationship to a homosexual relationship or a same-sex relationship. So, you know, it's difficult and things happen, and you don't always know who you're going to fall in love with. You don't always know what life has for you. So there are definitely challenges to blending families. My own story, I'm divorced from the father of my children, and I remarried a man who has children. And it wasn't always easy. Some parts of it were fine. Some of the kids were good with it. Others wasn't so easy. And if you hear a little clicking noise in the background, that's my dog walking across the floor. But, you know, we've managed to make it work, and you can too. But some of the challenges that people face, as I've mentioned before, if you go from what's considered a relationship that's considered in the norm to a relationship that's not, well, you're going to have inherent challenges to that. If you go from being a single parent to having a spouse in the house, is that a Dr. Seuss thing? Could be. Then you're going to have inherent challenges with that. Remember, with kids especially, there's a lot of role confusion if they're young, especially. Where, who's my daddy? Who's my mommy? What do I call this person? Do I have to really listen to them or not? You know, you're not my dad. I don't have to listen to you. So you've got to deal with all these things. You've got kids that maybe still want their parents to get back together, and they're going to be pretty upset when you marry somebody else. So you've got to think about all these things. You may have conflicts with the ex. That happens all the time. Hopefully you can work those out and become a big happy family, a big happy extended family. Differences in parenting philosophies can come up, and frankly that needs to be discussed early in your relationship, not after you get married, okay? You need to know that you guys are on the same page with how you parent. And if you are here and your other person is here, then you really need to step back and say, is this the relationship I'm interested in? If those philosophies are vastly different, then there may be other philosophies that are vastly different that could jeopardize your relationship. So it doesn't mean it can't work. It just means you have to sit down and figure out how to make it work for everybody that's involved. You need to think about, where are we going to live? Do we sell one house? Do we keep one? Do we rent one? What do we do with all this extra furniture? Who pays the bills? Are both people going to still work? If not, who's staying home? Are you combining your money, or are you keeping it separate? And there's lots and lots of issues that need to be discussed. The benefits, well, children can learn a lot about learning to live with other people. They can learn about tolerance. They can learn about sharing and compromise. Interestingly, the parent, you and your spouse or whoever, can learn about sharing. Tolerance, compromise, sound familiar? Yes, that's inherent in trying to blend families. But what you can end up with is one huge, big, happy family. The kids, maybe you have an only child and you're bringing in a couple more kids about their age. Well, now they're not an only child anymore, and that's, in some ways, that can be one of the challenges, but it can also be one of the benefits. Now they've got somebody to play with, and it's going to be a lot more fun for them. And in the long run, you'll have more grandchildren. That'll be cool too. So that's what happened to us. We ended up with double the grandchildren when our kids started having kids. So that worked out great for us. But what tips would I recommend for you? And I've already discussed some of it. But the main thing I want you to think about is this the right person? Are you sure this is the right person? If you're thinking about remarrying and blending families, bear in mind your children have already been scarred. They've been scarred by divorce, by death, by desertion, incarceration, a combination of any of those. So you don't want to make the same mistake or make a mistake. You want to bring someone into the house that's going to be there, that's going to be a good influence on your children, and that's going to be there for the long term. If you find that this person, maybe you're right up to the date of the marriage, and you think, I just don't think we can make this work, don't hesitate to back out right then. It's okay. Think about your kids. Think about your future. And it's okay. You can back out right up to the point that you say, I do. And it's all right. Every child in the home must be treated equally. I'm not saying to raise them all the same, because in my book I tell you, you can't raise them all the same. But they need to have equal time and attention. No one needs to be shown any kind of preferential treatment. And sometimes it's easy to take your little stepkids and show them a little preferred treatment just to try to get on their good side and smooth over some of the bumps. But then that's going to hurt your children's feelings. So you've got to be very careful with that, and your spouse has to be very careful with that. Kids need to know that Mom still loves them. They need to know that their dad still loves them, or whoever the absent parent is still loves them. They need to know from you that both of you still love them. They need to know that this new person that's come into their lives either loves them or is going to learn to love them. And it's vital that they understand this. Don't try to separate them from the other parent, barring abuse and all that. But in a normal relationship, they need all of you to make this work. They need to understand, you have to understand that it's not just you who's going through all of this emotion and all this change in your life. These children are going through it too, and they have no say in the matter. Which brings me to another point. I think it's very important to sit down. The prospective husband, the prospective wife, the prospective joint children, all sit down and talk about how this is going to affect them, how they feel about it, and listen to what the children say. Take them seriously. Make them know that they are taken seriously, that you've heard them, and maybe it's not time yet to get married. Maybe you need to push it back and wait until they're more settled into this. Maybe you just think, well, maybe if we just jump in, things will be better. And maybe they will. But if you do, you still need to take into account what they've said to you, and you need to address those issues and try to make it easier for them. Exes can be difficult. Sometimes they can be real difficult. One thing you need to remember is you're not taking somebody's place. You're just an extra person in the relationship. You're not the new mommy or the new daddy. They already have a mommy or a daddy. You're just another person who's going to love them and take care of them and guide them and teach them. And, come up with a cute name for yourself. And on the other side of that, if you are the parent that does not have custody and your 4-year-old or 3-year-old goes to live in somebody else's house and they start calling that person daddy or mommy because the other kids in the house call them that, don't get your feelings hurt. These children they don't mean anything by it. They're just confused. They don't know what to call that other person, and they don't mean to hurt your feelings. Don't be defensive. Just get past it. You tell them how you love them, and that the other person loves them too, and maybe you can come up, with a way to differentiate the two. Kids figure it out pretty quickly. Don't expect acceptance right away from the ex, but you need to be open and honest and friendly with the ex. Remember, especially if you're in the house that has the custody of the children, that ex can be very jealous of you because you spend more time with their children than they do. And that's hard. That's real hard. So you need to start doing things like give them a call and say, this isn't a big deal, but I just want you to know what happened today. Susie got an A on her math test. She was so proud, and we wanted to call you right away and tell you. Or say, Susie talked back to the teacher today, and how would you have handled this if she was with you? What would you have done? And let them be part of that life. Let them see the kids when they want to. Let them, the more you include them and make them feel part of your family, which can be awkward, I understand that, it's going to be better for everybody. My husband calls my ex-husband his husband-in-law. Okay, we're just one big extended family, and it's fine. We get along great. We have a good time. The kids don't have to worry about us fighting except maybe about politics, but not about them. When we get together, we can go to weddings together and birthday parties, and we all have Thanksgiving and Christmas dinner together. It's nice. It's really nice. And I hope everybody can reach that point. So never speak in a derogatory manner about the ex or the ex-grandparents. You may need their help someday, and you don't want them to find out that you've been talking bad about them. It's very confusing for kids if you start telling them, your father, he'll just never grow up. Well, is that useful to a child? Really? It's not. All it does is cause confusion, and it makes them not want to come to you and talk to you. If their father's never going to grow up, or he's drunk, or he's a jerk, or he's whatever he is, they'll find out. You don't have to tell them. They'll figure it out on their own. Just remember, there's a lot of emotions at play, and even if your kids are older, don't expect that to not be there. Even with teenagers or even adult children, when you start to blend a family, there's still going to be some emotions there. And there's still going to be some challenges. So don't expect to skate through this without any of it, because it's going to happen. You just have to be patient. You have to be consistent. loving. And you have to do the hard work. It takes hard work, but the reward can be so tremendous. So tremendous. And your new husband or wife, remember, they're not the enemy. Okay? Don't fuss at them when things aren't going well. You guys got to figure it all out. You got to figure out that you are a united front, and you need to stay that way. And hopefully, with your kids, you and your husband or wife and the ex can all be a united front. That's one thing my ex and I discussed early on when we first decided to get a divorce, was that we didn't want the children to be able to play us against each other. We wanted to have a united front with them and know that I knew that I could call him if I was having a problem with one of the kids, and he would fuss at them. And if they were grounded at my house, they were grounded at his house, and vice versa. And so they didn't get away with that. And it worked out really, really well. I think that's why we get along so well now, is because we tried to keep the kids first. It wasn't always easy. We didn't always get along, and we've had some real knockdown dragouts over the years about the kids, but not in front of the kids, ever. Not ever. Not one time. And we tried very, very hard not to say anything bad about each other. Sometimes something would slip out, it happens, and you look at your child and say, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. And your dad loves you very much, or your mom loves you very much. And you just go on and try not to do it again. So basically, you just treat everybody with love and respect. Isn't that what makes people successful at every phase of life? It will here too. This Parents Rule, and we'll see you next time.
That's good.